confused with the M8. The M8 and the M8S use different needles. So this here is a cartridge that is actually bespoke to Dr Pen. You can buy these from Amazon, and these are Dr Pen cartridges. You can use the other brands as well, whether there's enough information out there or knowledge about their effectiveness. So you can see that this is actually a Dr Pen Nano. I don't use nanos anymore. Now the cartridge that I have on here already is a Dr Pen 36 needle. And as you can see, the use by date is 2028, so we're well in date. So this particular M8S, that is what the barrel looks like. That is quite easily fits onto the machine. So some would call it machine, some would call it a pen. The lid off. If you were using this on a client, you would need to be covering this with tape and plastic to ensure that cross-contamination doesn't take place. So the first thing we would do is switch it on. The M8S is digital. So what we can do now is change the speed. You can maybe hear the machine is making a little bit more of a sound the higher the speed. So that is the speed. Now the other matter that we can change on this pen is the depth. So currently, if you can see there, that is on 2.5. So what that means is 2.5 mil. So as it stands, if we were to use this on somebody's skin, the pins or the needles, whichever word you want to refer to them as, would enter into the skin 2.5 mil. Now that is far too deep for the face. The only time that you would ever use 2.5 is for scarring on other areas of the body. So if you look there, I'm going to turn the speed down a little bit. You can see how far above the surface those pins or needles are. I'm going to turn it down slowly so that you can slowly see those pins and needles going closer to the surface. And what that means, as it's being turned down, that is the depth that will enter into the skin. So your optimal depth is 1 millimetre for a client's skin. So if you are doing a standard microneedling treatment, you would 1 mil. Once we apply the microneedling either under the eye or on the forehead, we want to be going to 0.5. If we were to apply a 1 mil depth on the forehead, it could be too abrasive because there isn't very much skin on the forehead. As the skin under the eyes is more sensitive. One of the reasons is because of the loss of fat pads. Now there are exceptions to the rules. So if you were targeting scarring, you may want to apply a further depth. Okay, so that's the M8S pen. The speed here, so we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it goes back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got the speed and the depth. So I've often been asked the question as to, well, why does it go up to 2.5? There will be exceptional circumstances where you may want to use a 2.5 mil depth, but that would be for scarring on other areas of the body, but not the face. Okay, so I'm going to switch that back, and I'm just going to show you the cartridge again. It can be quite confusing, so I would personally recommend always buying the Dr Pen cartridges, because the Dr Pen does specify the exact model that the cartridges are compatible for. There we go. These are single use only, and each cartridge must be disposed of in the sharps bin. So when using microneedling serums, it's very important that we use a serum that is sterile. But this is an example of one of the products that I use. This is a Derma Eye, and it's in the Bung. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the serum that we apply to the skin during microneedle is completely sterile. The only way to extract the serum is by using a needle. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Depending on how much serum you need, you can get yourself a 5ml syringe, a 3ml syringe, or even just a 1ml syringe. Most of the time we wouldn't use more than 1 ml of product per session. And it does depend on what product you're using for what remedy. So that's what a 5ml syringe looks like, and this is universal. So they always come pre-packed and sterile for cross-contamination. Now, all of the serums all have different viscosity, different thicknesses. I would always opt for a needle, a hypodermic needle that is long and has the right gauge, and it's 32ml. So 21 gauge is quite thick, so that's going to be thick enough for almost any serum to be withdrawn. If you were to use perhaps, let's say, a 30 or a 32 gauge needle that wasn't long enough, you may struggle to withdraw the product. Show you? So, a universal, and this is only being used for withdrawing. With some of these serums you can't actually see how much is in the bottle, so we want to apply that in the middle of the bung. So it doesn't really matter if we blunt this, because this is not going to be injected into the client's skin. We don't really need to worry about air bubbles either, because this is not going to be injected into the client's skin. The syringe is used just as a method of extracting the product and ensuring that it stays sterile. You would then ensure that the product then enters onto the client's skin. There's a few different ways you could do it. You could take the needle off and apply it directly on the skin. The problem with that is that quite often, if you're not used to using syringes, the product can actually extract too quickly, and you could find that you lose your product. A good way of doing it is by letting the client know that there is still a needle attached to the syringe, and that you go like this on the client's face so that the product could be used. Nice. I tend to do that on the client's skin. Okay, then you can pop your needle down, make sure it stays in a kidney dish so that it stays sterile. That can then be rubbed into the client's skin and then microneedled in.